Hello everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying the conference today as it has come to an end. I wanted to present something which was more fun and which techies really love, which is gaming and Metaverse. So a little bit about myself. I'm Hina Dixit and I currently head AI investments at Samsung Next. Before Samsung Next, I was part of Apple. I worked there for 8 years where I led various projects which included AI, iCloud, accounts, developer tools, Xcode, you might know it, security, you name it, I must have worked on some aspect of it. So today, we're here to discuss the future of AI in Metaverse and gaming. Now, why this? I, as a VC, I see a lot of technologies out there, and I see a lot of people talking about, various aspects like self-supervised learning, unsupervised learning. There's like a lot of problems with the data labeling, annotations, ML platforms. I see like these every day. But there are some aspects which are very close to my passion as well, which is gaming. And I'm not seeing a lot of research work happening there. Whereas even if there is a lot of research work, there is not much of commercialization happening at the same time. Because most of these research works are compute extensive and they require a lot of hardware, and at the same time they are very time consuming too. Right? And obviously not to comment on the kind of optimization that would be required when it came to memory as well. So basically, AI has come really far, right? And just a while ago, we remember, GPT-3, for example, uses 175 million parameters. And now, GPT-4 is expected to use 110 trillion parameters. So AI is becoming much stronger. And as AI is growing, we are able to imagine things and even achieve the kind of that imagination to a level which wasn't possible earlier. Now, I was sharing with a friend earlier why I want to see more AI-related startups in this space. So I'm going for a car ride, I'm going to take Ferrari into a racing track and I'm going to do a few laps. And as I was growing, it was always my dream to do it with my brother, but my brother isn't here today and he won't be there on Saturday as well. But I would still want to share that experience with him and create a memory out of it, and maybe even create a little game together. I'll be taking my GoPro, I'll be I have paid them $79 extra to tape record me while I take those laps. And I just have some videos and pictures of my brother. So maybe I could only imagine of creating some sort of fun game which includes racing using Ferrari and which includes footage from my racetrack and creating two characters out of our photos, which are 3D characters, and creating that kind of experience in the Metaverse. And sharing it with them. And not just this particular experience of gaming and just racing, but also convert it into a story. And eventually even set some sort of goals there. Right? Hey, whoever wins, or you need to kind of collect these items while you're on the track, while you're driving. So AI can be very useful in making my imagination come true. A lot of research work is happening in 3D rendering, but so far most of the techniques they're not memory efficient. They're extremely computation exhaustive, and I cannot imagine that these technologies will be available to consumers tomorrow anytime soon. But as a VC, it's my job to dream, and I continue to do that. So I want to share two very interesting technologies and research work that I came across, which I would like the builders of today to commercialize and build some cool experience out of it. So the first one is geometry efficient 3D GANs. Now what it does, so as I was telling earlier, that I would really like to be able to create avatars out of like 2D images that I have. There are a bunch of like, current techniques. I don't know if you have heard about Epic's MetaHuman project, which was only released April 2021. It's not, it's very limited to public, like it's, not everybody has like access to it. But they tried to, create human avatars using 2D images, but at the same time, the rendering was not efficient enough, like, they're still researching, and I only hope to see their, like, future work soon. Now, this particular research, this is focused on optimizing the 3D GANs in a way that, like, the memory like consumption is much more efficient, and obviously computation is, faster. Uh, so this project is currently led by Dixit. He's a professor at Stanford, and I have worked with him earlier. So I wanted to talk about it, and he was like, okay, go ahead. We want people to know about our work. So what they try to do is basically like, using a single view of a particular like, 2D image, they want to generate a 3D consistent multi-view of that particular 2D image. And these could be like inanimate objects, it could be like a cat or human beings. So just like in my story I was sharing earlier, like I would like to create avatars of like me and my brother using the 2D images and videos I have. But current technologies like which are available to consumers, they are not efficient enough. Most of them kind of assume a lot of like approximations when it comes to 3D rendering, and that's why the volumetric function, like it's based on so many approximations that the end result could be mocked because there are approximations. So if like you expect your avatar to turn head, the eye might go somewhere else, and it might not be consistent enough. Now, what these guys did, they based their algorithm on StyleGAN 2, which is like widely publicly available. Now, they did a very interesting thing with it. They took like a triplane 3D representation of that image, which was fed onto a neural renderer. Now, what this neural renderer had, it does have a triplane decoder, which is extremely it's lightweight, and then also they use a volume rendering function as well, which is a simple neural architecture. Now, since the resolution is one other problem, they wanted to add a super resolution layer on top of it, where they can convert your 2D images in poor resolution to high resolution. And that seemed to work somehow. After that, what they did is they used a StyleGAN 2 discriminator with dual discriminators, and then they were able to create efficient results. And the end results look like this. So even though these images, they're just coming out of 2D consistent, 2D images, they're still very, very consistent from every other view, every other angle. And they are able to capture details like wrinkle or dimples or the wink in the eye very efficiently. So this technique could be used for creating avatars in future. I'm not seeing a lot of commercialization of this, but there are a lot of heroes here and villains here who can use this research and they can expand it to the consumers. Now coming to the scene generation. In general, like when I was talking about the racetrack and using the 2D images and the footage from the racetrack and creating a virtual experience or a game experience for my brethren. It's very difficult to do it right now, but there is this technique called neural radiance field. It's one of the projects which is led by NVIDIA. They only published a research paper in 2021 December, which was very interesting, and and I really liked it, so I thought I would share it with you. What they focus on is basically this kind of like convert normal, basically they kind of like convert the complex scenes into 3D renderings. And at the same time, they are able to use a single continuous 5D dimensional coordinate, which just includes their spatial location and at the same time the viewing direction. So based on the direction you want to view, the 3D rendering will change accordingly. Now, as an output, what they get volume density, and they get the emitted radiance out of it in the direction of the viewing. This research was pretty interesting to me, and here, as you can see, this was just a 2D image, but it gave really effective 3D results. I could convert this into a 3D experience using Metaverse. Now, coming to story generation, there was a time when we really thought, how can AI have emotions, or how can AI understand humor? Google just recently, released a very interesting algorithm that can actually explain to you the jokes. So story generation is obviously any gamer would really understand the impact of a story generation. There has to be a good story about the game you're playing. And today's technology does empower us to get that and have that interesting story to engage our audiences. So there's a lot of interesting research that is happening in story generation too. The other thing is synthetic voice generation, which also includes sound generation. Any gamer would obviously agree with me that unless there are those fun sounds whenever you achieve something, whenever you hit a milestone, or a background sound like background music, that's really important for the gaming experience too. So even synthetic sound generation is a space where not many startups are trying to focus on. Now, some of the future studies that you can look at, which also includes interpolation and plot machine and text-to-image AI. Now, I don't know, most of the people here in the audience are researchers, must have seen Google's image, text-to-image and DALL-E from OpenAI. It's kind of fun, right? How you can generate a new images by using some text. It's pretty interesting. And then the application you can think of, can you use that in Dragons and Dungeons or Dungeons and Dragons, right? There is a very interesting company called AI Dungeons that I came across, and what they do is they basically let people narrate that story, or they also create alternative plots using AI, and they let people generate the entire experience on top of the images that get generated for the gaming experience. And there's a lot of people who are trying to expand this work. So that was me, a little quick. So other than that, I think very interesting to see the spectrum Metaverse as well. And I wanted to cover a little bit about it. But I want to leave time for questions too. So I want to see if I'm running out of time. Do we have time? I don't know where it is. Okay. We still have time. So yeah, so it seems my presentation was really short, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm open to questions. Please feel free to ask any questions you have.
Next image is received with coming next video as well.
Yeah, actually I'm seeing some work there, but it's at a very, very early stage.
Interesting to just put a book out there.
Yeah, it would be very interesting, right? But obviously, the 3D rendering would be a technique that would help us elevate to that level, right? Because first you generate the image using the text, and then you create the 3D renderings of that, and you can stitch those 3D renderings together to create the experience. Yeah. Out of all of them, I think when it comes to ratings field, I'm not seeing a lot of progress there. There's a very interesting company called Kaizen, and they are also trying to do something similar, but then obviously they face a lot of problem with 3D key mapping, and when it comes to even neural ratings field. So a lot of startups are still based out of gaming agents like Unity or React. So most of the startups are using that. Yeah.
Can you share Samsung sort of definition or scope of Metaverse?
Sure. In general, Samsung kind of envisions Metaverse not only about 3D world. We go with a very holistic point of view, which is very much I think it originates from John Radoff's original definition. That anything which dematerializes the physical limitations, whichever which any technology is which frees you is actually part of Metaverse according to them. And that's why even making a phone call or something like Alexa, it's still a contribution towards that, right? Because it frees you from physical boundaries. Okay, anybody else? Yeah.
So for gaming, investing in gaming, one of the biggest things we're hearing is latency is a problem. Gamers would love to have an application that can tell them how their game performance is going to be. Is there anyone working on something like that?
Actually, I haven't come across something like that, but I would love to know, that could be a really interesting problem, especially because there are a lot of lags. And when it comes to playing something on 5G, even there, there is a huge scope for improvement there for sure. But that's a big question for sure. Yeah.
Out of all these different emerging AI capable technologies, which ones do you think, in your opinion, have the greatest ability to actually be used in production in like NeRF is amazing, but could that actually be used in a game? Voice synthesis is awesome, but it's also kind of slow. Out of everything you're seeing, do you think it will have the biggest impact practically when it comes to the actual consumers?
Yeah, I think that is one of the problems because the commercialization is hard, but at the same time, there is a consumer demand for that. I don't know if you guys recall, there was a Reface app which went viral 2 years ago or something, and people paid $5 per month to just have access to that app where they can morph themselves into their favorite celebrity and create videos of themselves. And that was that was based on a game as well. Still it wasn't as efficient. But at the same time, I do think there is a demand, it's just that the commercialization is so hard. Any other questions? Yeah.
As the person funding this research and these tools creation, how are you anticipating and trying to stop people from using them for nefarious purposes?
Yeah, I mean, especially for deepfakes, right? When it comes to deepfake as well, there's one company called Reality Defender, and then there are a bunch of other companies which are working on that. I think the entire point is to identify these emerging markets, and they can be counterintuitive as well sometimes. It's just you write a piece of software, but at the same time you find the bug, so then you figure out other tools in future to counteract those bugs, right? So I think it's just an expansion that at times we are blissfully not even aware of all the pitfalls that are in a way. But at the same time, as we move on, we'll find more solutions. And as we see more problems, we'll find more solutions towards that. Anyone else? Yeah.
Think about portability and interoperability. You mentioned Unity and Unreal and graphics themselves. What's the position there?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really legit issue. And at the same time, like even in ML, when I was AI researcher myself, I had real tough time to kind of import papers with code which were written in entirely different framework. Like for example, I'm writing my code in PyTorch and somebody else has done it in TensorFlow. So it's a problem that is in ML, and for computer graphics, obviously, it's much more severe. And I haven't seen much of companies doing anything there. But I think that's a legit problem space. But it's out of my focus area. Would anybody like to answer that? Like, is anybody working or knows any company which is working in interoperability of graphics and hardware? Okay. Does anybody has a question or?
Are you seeing any fun games that include AI as part of the experience, whether it's match players or generate visuals?
Sure. I feel like every games is doing really fun things there, and then Roblox, I've gotten in touch with Roblox AI team, and it seems like they want to do something really fun with AI and create their storytelling, the gaming experience much more better. So these two companies are doing definitely a lot of work in AI in terms of gaming. Yeah.
Is that ours?
I think so. I know this. But I mean, if this context, maybe we can get those footages from Tesla and we can create virtual experience for that.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Yeah.
I was wondering, new types of sensors that people use images to input, which is awesome, great for spatial technique. Are you guys also looking at point clouds with your images, like using that as well, or I don't know? I'm wondering, what I see here is I take the flat photo and then I can, you guys can turn it into an amazing 3D model. Like, what if I take a 3D model photo, that's flat, there's only one perspective, can you then take that and enhance your result? I don't know. Is that something you guys looked at?
Yeah, that would be very interesting actually. I'm not aware of anybody doing research in this area. I know there are a lot of research that are happening in rendering technologies and synthetic data creation. I can see even a lot of work happening in control theory and finding cheating, and all those things, but not much here. Pretty interesting space, I guess.